What happened when an undercover CEO traded his corner office for a night shift on the shop floor? Hello to all you incredible, insightful listeners. Your presence here means you care about more than just titles and numbers. In today's story, we uncover what happens when a powerful executive goes incognito to witness the struggles of his frontline workers firsthand. What he finds isn't laziness or apathy, but quiet resilience, unspoken sacrifice, and deep exhaustion. This isn't just a tale of business, it's a story of humanity, and how real leadership begins with listening. Stay with us. This one's going to stay in your heart. Logan Pierce pinched the bridge of his nose as another department head droned through a PowerPoint on rising absenteeism across Metrolink's regional hubs. We've had 3 mechanics call in sick this week, 2 with exhaustion and 1 because his dog looked depressed, the HR director muttered, half apologetically. Logan didn't even realize the words had escaped his mouth until they were met with stunned silence. If one more person calls out because their Labrador seems gloomy, I'm tearing up the payroll myself. The room froze. A junior executive coughed awkwardly into his hand. Across the table, someone from compliance widened her eyes. Logan didn't care. He wasn't angry, exactly. He was tired. Not the kind of tiredness that sleep fixes. This was something deeper, calcified over years of trying to run a people-driven business while watching it morph into a data machine fueled by KPIs and sanitized reports. Metrolink had grown fast. 12 cities, over 3,000 employees, bus fleets, light rail hubs, call centers. On paper, it was a regional success story. But behind every weekly report was a quiet churn, burnout, unspoken frustration, and frontline workers who were more ghost than gear. Logan had tried top-down reforms, rolled out surveys, even installed an anonymous suggestion box. No one trusted it. It all felt like noise. He didn't want another wellness poster or mid-level manager assuring him everything was fine. Something was off, and he could feel it in his bones. If the people running the system couldn't or wouldn't tell him the truth, then maybe it was time to hear it directly. That night, Logan opened a blank browser tab and typed "mechanic certifications near me." 2 weeks later, Ben Carter was born. New name, new ID, clean cover story, and a pair of steel-toe boots waiting in Cleveland. Metrolink Transit Solutions wasn't just another transit provider. It was a symbol of modern mobility in the heartland. Founded 15 years ago by Logan Pierce in a rented garage with 2 refurbished buses, it had grown into a multi-city powerhouse, managing a complex network of buses, light rail systems, airport shuttles, and paratransit services across 12 states. Its operating metrics were textbook perfect: 94.6% on-time service, strong customer satisfaction, steady growth in federal contracts. But Logan knew numbers could lie. Turnover among frontline staff had quietly doubled in 2 years. Maintenance schedules were falling behind, dispatch teams were burned out, and riders were beginning to complain. Not about the service, but about the people providing it. Somewhere along the road to scale, Metrolink had become top-heavy and bottom-blind. Middle management filtered feedback into vague summaries, and HR buried complaints under legal disclaimers and polished memos. Logan didn't want PR spin. He wanted to know why a company built on movement suddenly felt like it was stuck in place. So he decided to go where the noise wasn't. He spent a weekend creating a new identity. Ben Carter, 43, a former diesel technician with a clean but humble record. A fake resume, basic background check, forged union credentials, and a 2-week night shift rotation at the Cleveland bus depot. He trimmed his hair, grew out the stubble, bought a plain jacket from Goodwill, and practiced loosening the posture that made him look like someone who owned things. Ben would live in a rented room near the depot, clock in on the graveyard shift, and keep his head down. No laptop, no chauffeur, no executive perks. Just a wrench, a clipboard, and a chance to find out, quietly, what the hell had gone wrong inside his own company. The Cleveland bus depot greeted Logan, now Ben, with the unmistakable scent of diesel, rust, and something sour that clung to the back of your throat. The building itself looked like it hadn't been updated since the early 2000s. Flickering overhead lights, cracked linoleum tiles, and breakroom vending machines that groaned louder than the buses they served. His first shift started at 10 p.m., just as the last of the evening routes rolled into their bays for inspection and repair. The night supervisor, Clara Jennings, a wiry woman in her early 40s with worry permanently etched between her brows, barely looked up from her clipboard when he arrived. "Carter? You're the new fill-in," she asked, already half-turned toward the garage. "Gloves are over there. Stay out of the oil pit unless I tell you otherwise." That was the extent of her welcome. "Ben?" Logan kept his head down, nodding, watching carefully. The depot was woefully understaffed. Mechanics worked alone instead of in pairs. Preventive maintenance checklists were getting pencil whipped to save time. No one talked unless they had to. And the exhaustion wasn't just physical. It was spiritual, the kind that sank into bones and dulled the light in people's eyes. That first night, Logan quietly observed Marcus Tran, a senior mechanic with grease-stained boots and eyes that sagged like overused springs. During a quick break at 2 a.m., Marcus ducked into his old Toyota parked out back. Curious, Logan followed at a distance and saw him curl up in the back seat with a hoodie as a pillow. It hit him. Marcus was living out of his car. No one said anything, no one helped. It was just normal. Over the next few nights, the pattern repeated. One guy brought instant noodles for every meal. Another used a sock to keep a leaky coolant pipe from spraying. Clara never sat down, never ate, just paced between workstations, muttering and refilling her coffee thermos. Logan had come looking for inefficiency, maybe bad leadership, but what he found was something quieter and more corrosive. Resignation. And it was everywhere. It was on his fourth shift that Logan, still going by Ben, met Devin Miles, a night route bus operator with a quiet presence and tired eyes that still managed a polite nod for everyone he passed. Devin had just pulled in from a long shift when Logan saw him sitting alone in the driver's lounge, hunched over a half-eaten granola bar and flipping through a battered paperback. When their eyes met, Devin offered a small smile. "You the new wrench?" he asked. Logan nodded. "First week." Devin shifted, gesturing to the empty seat across from him. "Welcome to the Insomnia Club." The two started talking during breaks, their conversations easy but sparse at first. Weather, routes, bus models. But eventually, Logan learned more. Devin was 29, had been with Metrolink for 7 years and never once called in sick. He regularly took on double shifts and route covers, but it wasn't for overtime padding or it was survival. One night, Devon opened up. "My little sister, Jada, she's got cerebral palsy. I need constant care." He paused, pulling out his phone to show Logan a photo. A bright-eyed girl with a lopsided grin and sparkly wheelchair beamed from the screen. "Mom passed away a few years back. Dad bailed when I was 15. It's just us now." Logan listened silently. Devon continued, explaining how Medicaid barely covered basic needs, how specialists cost more than he made in a month. Logan asked if he'd ever looked into Metrolink's Employee Assistance Fund. Devon gave a hollow laugh. "That thing? You need 5 signatures, a written report, and a miracle just to get $50. Then, after a moment, he added, "Can't even buy coffee most weeks. $5 off and I'm short on groceries." Logan offered to buy him one that night. Devon shook his head. "Appreciate it, but I can't afford the favor." That stuck with Logan. Here he was, a man worth millions, sitting across from someone who couldn't risk being $5 short. It wasn't just financial stress, it was the emotional weight of holding everything together alone. And for the first time in years, Logan felt ashamed of what he didn't know. The storm hit on a Thursday night, fast and angry, drenching the depot in cold sheets of rain and triggering spotty power outages across the city. The depot's radio systems flickered, cameras went offline, and visibility dropped to almost nothing. Clara, pacing in soaked sneakers, barked out orders as dispatch calls poured in. "Route still running. We need eyes on every unit before they roll out," she said, handing Logan a rain poncho without even looking up. No one complained, especially not Devon. He didn't hesitate, just pulled the hood over his cap and stepped back into the rain, like it was part of the job. Logan was assigned to cover maintenance checks on wet buses. An hour into the shift, something pulled at his instincts. Devon hadn't reported in yet from the west lot, and Logan decided to check on him. He found him at the far end of the depot, inside an old out-of-service shuttle van with the engine off and the emergency lights dim. The doors were half closed. Curious, Logan approached quietly and stopped. Inside, Devon sat on the floor, phone propped on the seat, reading a story to his sister over video chat. Her face was pale and tired, her voice faint, but she giggled at the way Devon changed his tone for each character. A dragon. A dog. A knight. Devon didn't notice Logan. He was too focused, crouched in soaked boots, doing voices for a little girl miles away who needed her brother's love more than any umbrella. Logan didn't interrupt. He stepped back and let the moment be. 20 minutes later, Devon returned to his post without a word. Neither of them mentioned it. But something in Logan shifted. This wasn't just dedication, it was devotion, and no spreadsheet in the world could measure that. Over the next 2 weeks, Logan stayed quiet, watchful, and increasingly unsettled. With his cover intact, he began to notice things others either couldn't see or had learned to ignore. Mechanics kept protein bars stashed in lockers, not as snacks, but as meal replacements. One dispatcher rotated the same 2 faded uniforms, quietly washing them in the depot's utility sink between shifts. A young cleaner no older than 20 worked back-to-back nights while trying to finish online courses on her phone during break time. Every face told a version of the same story, people trading health, time, and joy just to keep the system running. Metrolink's payroll data might show competitive market wages, but it didn't reveal the exhaustion behind those hours. The benefits package looked solid on paper, but the paper didn't say who was skipping prescriptions to pay rent. Logan saw it in Clara's eyes, too, how she moved like a machine on autopilot, refilling vending machine coffee every few hours and covering shifts when no one else could. Her clipboard became a shield, her silence a kind of surrender. There was no rebellion, no outburst, just a quiet erosion of energy across the entire team. They weren't lazy, they weren't entitled, they were holding the line with duct tape and hope. The problem wasn't performance. It was people pushed past their limits with no one asking how they were holding up. Logan realized then that his leadership team had been solving the wrong problems. They were tracking delays and absentee rates when they should have been listening to fatigue and fear. At the end of his final night in Cleveland, Logan sat alone in the break room, staring at a soda can and wondering how many lives he'd overlooked while chasing efficiency. It was time to return. Not to reports, but to responsibility. 3 days later, Logan walked into the Cleveland regional office not as Ben the mechanic, but as Logan Pierce, CEO of Metrolink Transit Solutions. He wore his usual blazer, but there was something different in his posture, quieter, heavier. Clara Jennings was reviewing schedules at the operations desk when she looked up and froze mid-sentence. The color drained from her face. One by one, employees recognized him. A few stared in disbelief. One dropped a pen. Logan raised a hand gently. "No one's in trouble," he said, "but we need to talk." In the conference room, he laid it all out. No PR filters, no corporate lingo. He told them the story of Ben Carter, the fill-in mechanic. He described Devon's nightly devotion, Marcus's backseat naps, Clara's quiet exhaustion. Not to shame anyone, but to say this. He saw them now, and more importantly, he believed them. That same day, Logan enacted immediate reforms. First, a pay bump for all night shift workers across Metrolink. Second, the creation of an emergency assistance fund, accessible with a single online form and supervisor confirmation, no bureaucracy, no judgment. Third, he greenlit the hiring of 2 additional mechanics at the Cleveland Depot to eliminate overtime strain. The HR team was instructed to remove red tape around meal stipends and transportation credits for low-income staff. But beyond policy, Logan made something else clear. This wasn't a performance fix. This was a culture reset. "This company runs because of you," he told them, "and from now on, we're going to act like it." Clara blinked back tears but nodded. Logan didn't care if the board asked tough questions later. He wasn't leading from spreadsheets anymore. He was leading from the truth. And the truth had a name. Actually, it had many. He had just started learning them. Logan didn't stop with Cleveland. 2 weeks after returning to HQ, he quietly enrolled himself in another field assignment, this time at Metrolink's Charlotte Light Rail Hub, a fast-paced site known for its growing commuter demand and high incident reports. Under a new alias, Kyle Benson, with a different haircut and thick-rimmed glasses, Logan showed up as a contracted platform technician covering a 2-week vacancy. From the moment he clocked in, he felt the tension. People moved efficiently, but didn't speak unless required. Smiles were scarce, no music in the break room, no laughter in the hallways. The supervisor, Renee Dawson, was sharp and capable, but brittle, like a woman whose patience had been sanded down to splinters. She gave instructions in clipped phrases, never made eye contact longer than necessary, and seemed to carry the entire hub's weight on her narrow shoulders. It didn't take long for Logan to spot the same quiet desperation he'd seen in Cleveland, but here it was laced with something more volatile: emotional fatigue. On his third night, he watched a confrontation unfold between an agitated commuter and a security officer named Jared Ellis. The man was yelling about a missed transfer, jabbing fingers, escalating quickly. Jared didn't flinch. He kept his voice calm, body language open, and gently guided the man away from the crowd until he cooled off. No backup, no thanks, just another day. Afterward, Logan approached him in the staff hallway. "You handled that well." Jared gave a tired shrug. "Comes with the vest." When Logan asked if he'd ever had de-escalation training, Jared chuckled. "Only from life." Logan scribbled it down in his notebook later that night. There was skill here, there was courage, but there was no support system. And that had to change. By the end of his second undercover stint, Logan had seen enough. The emotional burden across Charlotte's rail hub was undeniable. But it wasn't until his final night that it truly hit him. He found Renee alone in the break room, sitting at a corner table, her hands wrapped tightly around a steaming mug she wasn't drinking. Her usual armor was gone. When she looked up and saw him, "Kyle?" the quiet temp she offered a weak smile. "Ever have one of those nights where you wonder if you're doing any of this right?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Logan didn't answer immediately. He just sat beside her. "My daughter's 9, she continued, eyes fixed on the table. "Lives with my sister most weeks. I send money, FaceTime when I can. But last week she said she didn't remember what my voice sounded like when it wasn't through a screen." She blinked fast, swallowed hard, then stood up quickly. "Sorry." "Didn't mean to dump that on you." Logan reached out, gently touched her arm. "You're not dumping anything. You're surviving." The next day, Logan returned to HQ and dropped his second Groundwatch report, 14 pages, detailed, specific, and impossible to ignore. He didn't wait for approval. Instead, he called an emergency leadership meeting. When the execs gathered, he didn't show them data. He told them about Jared diffusing rage without training, about Renee's silent sacrifice, about a team running on caffeine and isolation. Then he introduced Groundline, a new rotation program requiring every senior manager to spend 2 days per quarter working alongside frontline staff. No titles, no privileges, just a uniform and a willingness to listen. But that wasn't all. Logan also launched several reforms: a confrontation bonus for verified incident reports involving abuse, resilience stipends not tied to productivity, and on-site mental health support funded through redirected executive bonuses. The pushback came fast. One board member asked, "You're paying people for their feelings now?" Logan didn't blink. "Feelings are the job," he said, "and if we can't recognize that, we shouldn't be leading." For the first time in years, the room fell silent. Not out of shock, but understanding. Logan had cracked something open. Now, the real rebuilding could begin. 3 months later, the shift at Metrolink was impossible to ignore. It wasn't just policy changes or new programs, it was the way people carried themselves. Logan sat in his office in Minneapolis, the morning sun casting long streaks across his desk as he read through the latest Groundline reports. Resignations had dropped by 22%. Overtime abuse was down. But the most telling indicator? The hardship assistance portal had seen a 400% increase in submissions, meaning people were finally asking for help, trusting they'd be met with support, not red tape. One letter stood out. It was from Devon Miles. Written in careful blocky handwriting, it simply said, "I got promoted, shift supervisor. And Jada got her new chair last week, the one that can tilt and help her stretch. She's smiling more. Thank you for not just hearing us, but seeing." Attached was a photo of Jada, beaming in a sleek, new motorized chair, wheeling down a sidewalk with a handmade sign taped to the back, "Go Big Brother." Logan pinned it to the board above his desk, next to a photo from Clara, her and her son at a weekend baseball game, something she hadn't attended in over a year. Marcus Tran had emailed too. He'd moved into company-subsidized housing and was studying to become a fleet manager. Renee? She'd taken her first vacation in 6 years, spending a full week with her daughter at a lakeside cabin. She made me promise no phone, and I kept it. Logan smiled at that one. It meant more than any spreadsheet ever could. But the biggest change wasn't in metrics, it was in tone. Depot break rooms had color again. Staff meetings included check-ins that asked how people felt, not just what they'd completed. Supervisors stopped leading with policy and started leading with presence. The ground line became a rite of passage. Executive skepticism had given way to humility. Even Steve, Logan's previously resistant COO, pulled a night shift at a Chicago rail yard and came back with red eyes and a 12-point proposal for better meal options and sleep pods. Still, Logan knew this was only the beginning. There were other cities, other depots, other Devons. He didn't need undercover aliases anymore. He needed consistency, accountability, and a culture that didn't require disguise to understand its people. So he rewrote Metrolink's mission statement, not for brochures or investors, but for them. To drive with dignity, to repair with pride, to protect with presence, to lead with empathy, and to never forget the humans behind the uniform. Later that evening, Logan boarded a quiet night bus out of habit, not duty. The driver didn't know who he was, and that suited him fine. He sat near the back, watching the city pass in soft amber light, listening, not to engines or alerts, but to the heartbeat of the company he was finally proud to call human. The story of Logan Pierce and Metrolink Transit Solutions teaches a powerful lesson. True leadership begins with listening, deeply, quietly, and without ego. Despite the company's outward success, Logan realized that numbers alone could never reflect the hidden cost of burnout, exhaustion, and quiet suffering endured by his frontline workers. By stepping into their world, without a title, without recognition, he uncovered the human truth behind the uniform. The lesson isn't just about improving wages or offering benefits, it's about empathy in action. It's about understanding that emotional endurance, silent sacrifices, and unseen acts of devotion are just as valuable as productivity metrics. Leadership isn't a corner office. It's knowing when to sit beside someone in the break room and hear what they're too tired to say out loud. Through connection, transparency, and genuine care, Logan rebuilt not just a company, but a culture rooted in dignity. The greatest takeaway? Real change doesn't come from sweeping reforms or flashy campaigns. It starts when someone in power chooses to shut up, suit up, and see the people who hold everything together. And in doing so, they remind us all that compassion isn't a liability, it's the foundation of everything that lasts.